Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to the investor webinar of Sanofi India Limited. My name is Girish Tekchandani. I am Company Secretary of Sanofi India Limited. I have with me Mr. Rajaram Narayanan, Managing Director,
Good afternoon.
Mr. Vaibhav Karandikar, Whole-Time Director and Chief Financial Officer of Sanofi India Limited.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Before we begin this webinar, there are two important announcements. You heard in the recorded message that the proceedings of this meeting are being recorded. Please take note of that. And second, please also note our standard disclaimer that certain statements in this webinar may be forward-looking. The actual results may be affected by many factors that may be different from what is envisaged in terms of future performance and outlook that is being discussed today. Moving to the agenda of this webinar, we have divided this webinar into two parts. In the first part, we will take you through a business presentation. This should take 15 to 20 minutes. All participants will be in listen-only mode in this part. And in the second part, we will have approximately 1 hour to have an interactive session with you. We will close this webinar at 4 p.m. I am now handing over the webinar to Mr. Narayanan and Mr. Karandikar to give opening remarks and to make their presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Girish, and good afternoon to everybody who is on this webinar. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is our first investor webinar, and we have taken a lot of feedback which we have received in the past, and I hope that we'll be able to share with you some glimpses about our company and at the same time also get to learn from you a bit more on how to take this ahead. It has been a challenging year for everybody in the country, for the industry, as well as for Sanofi. But I think what has really kept us going and invested in the future is our commitment to make sure that wherever we are and whatever we do, we have the interests of patients in mind, and we are making a big difference to the lives of people in India as well as across the world. And it is this resilience in the organization that has actually translated in the performance of 2020 and gives us the confidence that we are in the right direction. So we're going to share with you a few slides which can set the context for the year, give you an idea about where we are heading, and then we'll move over to the discussion where we'll invite questions from you. So first, to recap, we are a company which has been here for a long period of time in India, and we are more than 2,700 crores in sales amongst the top multinationals which are operating here. And we take particular pride in the strength of our brands, which are very differentiated in a market which is largely a branded generics market. And not only are we present in the domestic business, but also in the exports operations, which are an integral part of our organization. Our performance for our shareholders continues to be well within expectations, and we have a very formidable market capitalization. We have several employees in the company, close to about 3,000, and we reach more than 100,000 pharmacies with our products. We are proud to say that 1 in 3 households, in fact, uses one of our brands, and this is made available through a large number of distributors. We are one of the few multinational pharmaceutical companies which also has a very strong manufacturing footprint. We have a prestigious manufacturing site in Goa, where we produce a lot of our solid medicines. We also have a network of contract manufacturers who support us. And as I said earlier, our brands are our biggest strength, and more than 70% of our sales actually comes from brands which have been built over the last few years. And they are actually the brands which are the standard of care and the first preference for many physicians as well as for patients. This is translated into a consistent growth for us over the last many years. And in the last 5 years, our domestic business has grown approximately 8%. And you must remember that these are periods when we've also had price cuts through the NLEM policy, and we have exports which have had a CAGR of about 11%. So broadly, in a market which has been growing around this same rate, our key therapies, of course, grow much faster, but at an aggregate, this is our consistent growth over the last 5 years. Now, 2020, as I said, was a very, very challenging year for all of us, but this was one of those years where it was very important for us to be focused, particularly as a healthcare player, on what was really most important, both for our people as well as for our patients. We, as you saw, we employ a large number of people, and on one hand, we had to ensure that our factories keep, manufacturing at full capacity without any break. We continue to make medicines available, and on the other hand, we have a large number of employees who actually, on the day-to-day work, engage outside with physicians in their clinics and in the hospitals. So we had to ensure that they are safe as well. So we were very, very strict in implementing the safety norms which were required, supported enormously by our corporate. And in fact, today marks the first full year of having started the work from home for a large number of employees that we executed in 2020. Our employees have remained safe, but we've also taken particular interest in making sure that our partners across are also safe and ensuring that the best safety standards are followed. We are very happy to report that we had almost no breakdown or shortage of supply of our medicines anywhere in the last 12 months during this difficult period. Many of our products are also through the cold chain distribution system, but despite that, I think we were supported very well by our teams as well as by our partners. We continue to engage with physicians. We continue to support patients during these times, and we therefore had to develop, several new capabilities as well as augment some of the ones we already had, particularly in the area of digital engagement, in the area of processes and transactions, which fortunately we had anyway digitized in the last few years. So one of the things which really came to help us in the last 12 months was the fact that over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had a significant transformation in our operations, whether it's in our financial transactions, whether it is in our customer engagement processes. And all of that served us very well in the last 12 months. And therefore, I think as we enter the next phase, we feel confident that, we are entering with the learnings of the last 12 months, but also the reassurance that a lot of our systems and continuity processes are very, very well developed and secure for us in terms of risk management. We've been saying this at all our AGMs, but just to re-emphasize, we have 3 key priorities in our portfolio. The first is really to grow our diabetes portfolio. India is a country with nearly 100 million patients who have the incidence of diabetes, and very few, half of them are only really treated. And I think what is important is that there is a large headroom to make a difference to many of these patients. And that's the area which is our first priority. We have a large portfolio, which is of products which have been, built over the last many years. These are standard of care for many physicians. It's what we call the established products. And over here, it's really about creating efficiency in our go-to-market operations so that we are able to continue to, create preference for these brands, but, optimizing the way we reach physicians and patients with our systems. And the third is really in the area of consumer healthcare, where we have, as you're aware, self-medication is accelerating. It particularly, we saw that in the last 12 months. And over here, some of our key brands like Allegra, Combiflam. These are brands where there is an innovation which is likely to drive the future of these brands. And apart from this, of course, it's about using digital as a key route and a key enabler for growth of our business. Now, how does this really translate? And one of the things we really competitively measure is how are we doing versus the market on our key brands. If you look at the last 12 months, which is what you're seeing on the first line, the Indian pharmaceutical market, the IPM, has grown at about 4%, and your company's portfolio has grown at about 8%. So that really tells us that we've got strong brands at a time when a large part of the country was under lockdown, and therefore it is really the strength of the brands, what they mean to our physicians, what they mean to our patients, and that's what's made all the difference. If you look at the performance of some of our key brands, for example, insulins, we are growing in sound double digits. That's one of our focus area. The same is true for some of our leading brands like Allegra, like Combiflam, or Cardace. So the entire cardiovascular, cardiodiabetes, as well as consumer healthcare space is the one which we focus on, and those are the brands which are growing strongly. Of course, we also have a couple of challenges. In the hospitals, there was a lot of elective surgeries and inpatient admissions, which had come down significantly during the last 12 months. So some of the brands like Targocid, which is an anti-infective used in the ICUs for elective surgeries, was less consumed. But overall, I would say I'm very proud that our teams have come together very strongly, supported by the entire ecosystem that we have around us. And in particular, I think, the government of India stepped in both at a central level as well as at the state levels to support the pharmaceutical industry in the last 12 months with extremely proactive steps, and everyone was available to make sure that there was no supply disruption. And therefore, companies like us, of course, benefited during the last 12 months as well. I'm going to hand over to our CFO, Vaibhav Karandikar, and he'll take you through some of the highlights of our financial results.
Thank you, Raja. Good afternoon to everybody. Like Raja mentioned, we had a strong performance overall in the domestic business. Just want to share the performance split between the domestic and the export business. So if you can see, the domestic business largely has been growing consistently. 2014 to 2019, we saw a CAGR of 8%. We are growing consistently over the years. Between 2016 to 2019, the growth that you see largely is driven by both price and volume, largely in equal proportions. And the 2020 growth, the 8% growth that you see, is largely price-related growth, volume being flat because of the impact of COVID-19. The export business also has grown from 2014 to 2019 at a CAGR of 11%. In 2020, we see a degrowth of 33%. That's largely because of the Zentiva transaction that we closed in May 2020. So the decline is because of that. And if you exclude the Zentiva transaction, that means if we compare the performance on a like-to-like basis, the exports would degrow slightly because of lower offtake in the destination countries due to multiple factors, but primarily due to COVID-19. So overall, a strong performance from the domestic segment, and also in the context of the Zentiva transaction, the export business has also maintained its overall performance. Just to talk about some of the performance highlights of 2020, but also to give a bit of a trend in terms of the previous years. The profit ratios have significantly improved in 2020, going up from around 18.5% to 22.15% the operating profit. So also the profit before tax. You have seen that the overall sales impact because of COVID has been limited, although we have not grown volumes in the previous year. But largely because of the segments that we are in, we have been able to maintain the business to a large extent. However, our field force was not on the ground for a significant portion of 2020. Raja was mentioning about the safety protocols of the company, and our field force was not on the ground for a large portion of 2020. They were more back in the field sometime around November and December. As a result of that, you had cost savings because of the field force costs and because of the lower activities, the physical activities that we do with regard to HCP engagement. Once the physical activity resumes, that means once the field force is back on the ground, a proportion of these costs are likely to come back. But structurally, there will be a shift to more digital events as compared to physical, and that would lead to savings in the long run as the proportion of the digital events increases. So from a profit point of view, the ratios have significantly improved. The return on shareholders' funds and capital employed again has increased exponentially, primarily because of the improvement in the profit ratios, but also because of the higher dividend payout, the cash payout that we did last year. So that's also a contributing factor which increases the return on shareholders' funds and the capital employed. In terms of the working capital, post the divestment of the Ankleshwar site, we have now a toll manufacturing arrangement with Zentiva. That has an impact on inventory. Overall inventory values are on the lower side. The debtors are also on the lower side since the export business reduces post the Zentiva transaction, and the export business had a higher credit period historically. So therefore, you will see also an improvement in the overall working capital ratios between 2019 and 2020. And this would be largely, the expectation is that this would largely be stable as we move forward. So these were the key highlights from a 2020 perspective, as well as some trends that we wanted to showcase. And I give it back to Raja now to take it forward.
Thank you, Vaibhav. So as you would have observed, in the last few years, apart from bringing enormous focus on a few areas where we want to win, we've also been, significantly working around some of the ratios which you're seeing over here, and the direction is always, a credit for us. But as we look into the next few years, I think it's important to take stock of where we are as a country in terms of some of the healthcare trends. And I'm just sort of highlighting a few of these for us to keep in mind. I think the first is that, the kind of therapies which are growing in India, which are driving market growth, are largely the chronic ones. As you're aware that, a lot of the infectious diseases have become less in the country, and it's now really the non-communicable diseases, whether it's diabetes, whether it's hypertension, cardiovascular related problems. These are the areas where we are seeing a much higher incidence, which is both in terms of diagnosis as well as in terms of treatment. So that's what seems to be driving a lot of the market growth and will continue in future. The second is that traditionally, a lot of the pharmaceutical market has been concentrated in the large cities, metro towns, and that's because the services which were available in terms of healthcare facilities were located here, and patients used to come from the smaller cities to the larger towns around. But in the recent times, we've also seen a growth in the smaller cities, and we think that that is an area which will continue to accelerate, and it particularly got accentuated during the last 12 months. The third is the model in pharmaceutical promotion has largely been a face-to-face interaction with the doctors. We believe that going ahead, this will become a more hybrid model. And as a company worldwide, we have been developing the capability for it. And in many of our global markets, we've had very good learnings, which we are going to benefit from in India. And we believe that the right blend of face-to-face and digital will be important, and that capability is going to be vital for being competitive in the market. Of course, during the lockdown period, we saw a big adoption of telehealth and telemedicine, and while it may not be to the same extent like it was in the early part of the lockdown. But going ahead, I think patients are getting more comfortable with the idea of teleconsultation. And that's the other piece which we should observe in the next few years. We've all been reading about big entries which are being made in online pharmacies. And during COVID, we saw a huge adoption of purchases from online pharmacies. And I think directionally, this will continue. And your company is engaged with many of these through partnerships. And here again, we stand to benefit from the learnings that we have in many of the developed markets where our other group companies have been developing both processes and relationships with top online as well as retail chains. As far as the regulatory environment is concerned and the healthcare spending that the finance minister has recently announced a very aggressive target on this. There is an increase in the allocation and some of it, of course, is for specificities like vaccination. But I think directionally, we will see more investment in healthcare. And as it gets clarified more and more, I think we too will like to participate in the opportunities, which arise from there. In 2021, we expect a new list of essential medicines to be announced because every 5 years it is expected to be revised. And I think somewhere during this year, we will get a new list. And, we await to see how that impacts some of our portfolio. So that's really what we should sort of keep as a framework within which we plan for the next few years. But for Sanofi, just to reiterate, keeping in mind the way some of the trends are shaping, we have 4 pillars around which we build our business. The first very clearly is that we believe that the diabetes market is one where there is enormous opportunity for us to serve more patients. And in that, we have a portfolio both in insulins and to some extent in orals, where we believe that we'll be able to shape the market. Of course, we have targeted assets in other therapies, whether it's established products or consumer healthcare, which we will continue to focus on. The other piece is a transformation in the go-to-market where the access to physicians will change and it will move to a hybrid model, and we will be driving a lot of our capability in that area. As you can see that there's been a lot of investment in digital health, both through startups as well as established companies. And it is here that we are creating partnerships and accelerating innovation. We also believe that we are in an industry where, our people need to be deeply committed and passionate. And we have a group of employees who have been consistently, demonstrating an amazing ability to win in challenging circumstances. And with the change in the kind of talent market, as well as the opportunities for, which are there because of the digital ecosystem, we would be consistently investing in developing our people, developing our talent, and ensuring that the culture of the organization continues to be one which is of service to patients and at the same time being ahead of the market in terms of innovation. We look at it as 3 key pillars. It's profitable growth, it's consistent, it needs to be competitive in the areas where, we are investing. So over there, it's not only enough to grow, but we also need to be going ahead of the market. And in an area like healthcare, ethics and business integrity are extremely important. So responsible growth for us is a non-negotiable. So that's really, a summary of what, we wanted to share with you and sort of set the stage for the questions that you would have. And Girish, we can invite people to ask questions, and you can probably outline the process we'll follow now.
Sure. So thanks, Mr. Narayanan and Mr. Gavalikar, for your presentation. We will now proceed to an interactive Q&A session. In this session, We will respond to your queries within the boundaries of our internal policies. As per our policies, we will restrict to our responses to clarify on the matters which are already available in public domain through our annual reports, quarterly financial statements, and other disclosures made through stock exchanges. There are many granular aspects of our business or financials, such as product-wise or site-wise or therapy-wise sales, margins, profitability, which we consider as company confidential, and hence we will not be able to comment on those topics. Also, we do not provide earnings guidance, and hence we will not be able to respond on queries on future business, future product launches, margins, profitability, or CapEx. You may please raise your queries accordingly. As we had mentioned on our registration page, we will be taking questions from you in the sequence of your registration. In case of multiple registrations from the same institutions, we will take questions from the first registered participant and give opportunity to other participants from the same institution at the end of this session. In the interest of time and for giving equal opportunity to other participants, please keep the number of questions limited to 1 or 2. You can again join the queue by clicking Raise Hand tab at the bottom of your screen. So I will be inviting people in the sequence of registration. You are requested to unmute yourself and ask your question. The first question is coming from Mr. Ganesh Radhakrishnan, he is individual investor. So please go ahead. Mr. Radhakrishnan?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Mr. Radhakrishnan, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. I have two questions. One is, what is the plan for now that, some products are going to be discontinued, like soframycin and other stuff, and also you have sold off some of the things to Zentiva. What are your plans to get more products from your global company to India, especially on the consumer health care?
Yeah. Okay. And your second question, Mr.
My second question is more on in terms of the growth. You have been growing at about 8% in India. And what do you see for the next, long-term plan over the next 5 years? What is going to be, and also, if at all new products are going to be introduced in India, does Sanofi have other companies in India through which it can launch, especially vaccines like that? Or it will be launched only through Sanofi India?
Because I'll answer your second question first. I think in terms of growth, really, as we said in the beginning, we don't look at aggregate growth. In the therapies which we are competing, which is really in the area of diabetes and in the area of consumer healthcare, we would be looking at any point of time to be, growing in line or ahead of the market. That's the way we look, because, this is a very large market. We don't compete in all the therapies. So that's, as far as the first one is concerned, in terms of the launches that we have planned, there are specific areas like diabetes and consumer healthcare where we have a plan to grow the market, both to reach as well as extensions in our existing portfolio. We have only very recently launched Toujeo in our diabetes portfolio. We have introduced extensions in Combiflam. And on our key brands, we would continue to invest going ahead. Of course, as and when a pipeline is available for these therapies, we would be introducing them in India as well. Yeah. Can we go on?
Yeah. The second question, the person in queue is Jinal Sheth, but she's not on the call. The third one is Jairam V, but he's also not on the call. So I'm moving to Mr. Kamlesh Shah from Finvest Advisors. So please unmute yourself and go ahead. Mr. Kamlesh Shah? Mr. Shah, please go ahead. So we'll move to the next person. The next person is Pruska Lemthongthong from Aberdeen Standard Investment Asia Limited.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. It's very comprehensive, and thank you for the color. I have two questions. My first question would be on digitalization. So wondering if you can share a bit more details on this initiative, what you have been doing over here, what you plan to do in the future. And I think if you can share a bit more details on the implication to data gathering, your ability to understand consumer insights, as well as how that all translates to cost, that would be great. So that's for the first question.
Yes, and the second?
Do I move on to the second question?
Yeah, so yes, please,
okay.
If you can.
Okay, for the second question, I'll be grateful if you can comment on management KPIs and how that is aligned with the strategic pillars that you talk about and some of the non-negotiables that you talk about as well in the strategic pillar slide.
Okay, thank you. So firstly, thank you for this question. I think on digitization, this is a key part of Sanofi's global strategy. And as you know, that digitization is across multiple fronts. As an operating company in the country, there are a couple of areas where, it becomes even more critical. One is in our go-to-market is the main area where we are looking at digitization, which is in the way we engage with our customers, and that's largely physicians. And in that, whether it is the use of devices, whether it's developing content which is personalized and customized for giving information. That's the primary area where we are investing significantly in digitization. Almost all our field colleagues today use digital engagement tools, and these are subsequently captured for performance as well as for feedback. The second area, of course, is in the area of transactions, which, of course, we are digitizing all our transactions, and we continue to do that. But that's at a global level, which we do. The third, in the area of data, there are two parts to it. One is which is transaction data, which we do with, in terms of commercial. So that's, of course, something that is pretty routine. But as far as other data things are concerned, which are around patients, we don't capture any data as far as patients are concerned. Our data capture is entirely restricted to commercial transactions that we have right now. Yeah. But going ahead for us, it is really how do you build the capability at the back end to create customer engagement, to have closed loop marketing, as well as to develop content which is timely, which is relevant, personalized, and customized. So that's really the broad buckets on which we are working. At a global level, of course, we have several initiatives, whether it's in the area of real world evidence, whether it's in accelerated clinical trials using data. These are projects which are being driven by Sanofi worldwide. By us. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. How does it impact cost? Frankly, the primary objective of this is nothing really to do with cost. I mean, it is about being more relevant to our customers, ensuring that we are able to create better outcomes for patients. In the context of 2020, there has been some savings in costs because we didn't have to go into the field to conduct a lot of activities, and a lot of them had to be done digitally. To that extent, there has been some cost avoidance, but some of it may come back. But I think as a matter of principle, we are going focus more on digital events, digital engagement, and accelerate the hybrid model which we spoke to you about. So I hope that answers your question. The second one in the area of management KPIs. So we have a nomination and remuneration committee to which reviews the KPIs of the key management personnel every year. They are calibrated around two axes. One is around the what, which is really around business results, it's around innovation, it is around financial results and people development. And then, of course, there is the other axis, which is around how, which is in terms of, both in terms of employee engagement, in terms of compliance, in terms of ethics. And that's the area where we look at how. So those are the things. And there's a grid which works for the corporate, and the NRC every year, both approves the KPIs and then subsequently validates the, reward system after that. That's how it is done. You move on?
So moving to the next set of questions, Mr. Mitesh Shah from ICICI Securities. Mr. Shah, please go ahead.
Hello. Thanks for taking my question, and thanks for the comprehensive presentation. Basically, I have a couple of questions. You talking about the government push on the healthcare sector, but the government is also pushing on the generic part as well. And in the pandemic, the trade generic has also increased because the prescription was less. And I heard about it in tier 2 to tier 3 big city of the rural. Trade generics are quite high. So how you look at this point of view? I just want your view over that.
So look, India has been a branded generic market in any case, right? We're talking about 85-90% of the market anyway being branded generic. I think there is some trade generic push which would have happened. But our experience has been, and our plan also continues to be, that there is a significant preference which you can develop for innovative products which are now generic, which are what we call branded generics. So we are the innovators in most of these therapies. And also there are other factors, whether it's in terms of quality, whether it's in terms of education. These play a significant role. And so that's how we've been able to maintain differentiation and distinctiveness for our brands. That we don't see going away in future. The second piece of it was quite right. I mean, the smaller cities are expanding, and therefore I believe that many of our brands will now have the opportunity for more access, because there is also the digital engagement and promotion opportunity for us, which in the past may have been a little more difficult, because it would have required always feet on street to reach smaller cities. But now with the entire digitization move, the availability of products through e-commerce, brands which companies like us have, which are aspirational but were not accessible, would now find their way to some of these markets. So we actually look at it as an opportunity and not a threat.
Yeah. And about the second question, how much means ground level activity you started compared to the pre-COVID level?
So we have, as we speak, that is, in fact, let me say even as of yesterday, we are operating pretty much in most of almost, I think I would say over 95% of our teams are working in the field, but they are working with significant restrictions, in the sense that we do not permit working in certain types of accounts, in certain types of conditions, etc. So while physically everybody is there in the field, it's not necessary that they're operating at 100% like some other companies. Yeah, and also we've really come in only in the month of January. So till December we were not in the field.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. The next set of questions comes from Mr. Ravi Srivastava from Big Capital.
Hi. Thank you for this opportunity. I had just a couple of questions. One is on, just wanted to get some clarity on, what sort of products get launched under Sanofi India Limited versus what gets launched in the unlisted entities of the company. So we were, at least I was under the impression that, anti-diabetic drugs are part of Sanofi India Limited and not the unlisted entities, but we have seen that few anti-diabetic drugs have been launched in the unlisted entity as well. So if you can give us some clarity on how to think about these drug launches into unlisted and listed. And second, just some clarity on, in the last few years, new launches have been a bit slower. So what's the thought process? I don't want to get numbers or anything, but just thought process on the pipeline for the future. How should one think about that?
So I'll take the first question. In terms of product launches, as a matter of principle, Sanofi India will continue to launch products in the categories in which it is present. So Raja was mentioning about the launch of Toujeo in the past because we are present in the insulin therapy. Of course, there would be some exceptions to this, or there would be some decisions or other factors to be considered on a case-to-case basis. Because we need to consider the in-licensing arrangement terms, etc. And that's the reason that the two products that you're referring to were launched in Sanofi Synthalabo, because we had to consider some of the in-licensing agreement that was there in those two products. But largely as a principle, we will launch the products in the categories in which we are already present, and in the other categories, it will be launched in the respective companies. So
just on that, the in-licensing part, you meant that it's in license with some other company abroad, and that's why that's
right. That's right.
Got it. That's very useful. Thank you. The second one, just on the whole thought process of new launches, I think Mr. Raja has been quite focused on, categories, more OTC categories and, vitamins and other areas. So if you can give us some thought process there, what's the plan? What sort of products can come up in the future?
So as I said, our focus is on diabetes. And there are two ways we look at this market. One is where we need, medicines which are significantly better than the available treatment and can make a transformative impact. And the second is where do we believe that there is a big headroom for just making these medicines accessible for shaping the therapy. We think very strongly that diabetes is an area where, in India, for example, we are talking about 100 million patients, and we have an insulinization rate which is so low. We have, I think, less than 15-16% of patients right now on insulin, which compares in terms of just the rate of insulinization, which is much poor compared to most of the other countries. So I think there's a headroom, firstly, for education, for training, for making sure that patients get the right treatment. And that itself, I think, is market development and market shaping is a significant opportunity for us in India. Having said that, we are constantly on the lookout for any kind of, extension, innovation, or a relevant patient need where we can launch. But we are certainly not to be compared with, a broad spectrum generic company where the whole theory of growth is around launching a new molecule or a new product, which is, or a new dosage form every few months.
Yeah. Just one, if I may, one more question is on the MR strength of the company. What is the MR strength, and what's the plan in terms of growing that so that you can penetrate better in the country?
So if we have roughly 2,200 people on the field, that includes the MRs and their supervisory, people like area managers and regional business managers. Currently, we will be more or less constant in terms of headcount. There is no specific plan to increase the headcount.
But we do intend to reach far more physicians
through the digital activities.
Through the combination of, because I think the hybrid model allows us to use our existing strength along with digitalization capabilities to reach significantly more patients. But it's not necessarily we need more feet on street for that.
Got it. Thank you so much. It's very useful.
So moving on to the next person, Mr. Abdul Qadir Puranwala from Anand Rathi Shares and Stockbrokers. Please go ahead, sir. Mr. Puranwala?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So in the presentation, we spoke about Toujeo and Lantus growing at 20%. So what would be inline market growth for or the covered market growth for these products?
Look, generally, it depends which year you take, but in all the years, we would be growing ahead of the market. If you look at recent growth, you will find that, the covered market growth is about between 8 to 10%, and we would be growing at a much higher rate, closer to 18 to 20%. If you look at the last 3 years, the analog market would grow at about 14 to 15%, and we would be growing closer to about 18%. So I think we generally tend to grow about 3 to 4 points faster than the market. But of course, last year has been more favorable for the established, stronger brands like ours.
Sure, sir. And sir, my second question is with regards to the intercompany loan given to Sanofi Shanta Biotech, which is Sanofi Healthcare now. So, any plans of renewing this loan when it's due to repayment in April next year?
So the loan has been renewed up to April 2022, as per in the last board meeting. So as of now, the term of the loan is up to April 2022.
All right, sir. Sure. That would be all from me. Thank you.
Moving on to the next person, Mr. Amit Hiremat from Mahindra Manulife Mutual Fund. Mr. Hiremat?
Hi. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir, in the presentation you mentioned regarding you seeing the growth happening mostly in the tier 3 and tier 4 going forward. Would you be, changing your model as far as, doing your promotion activities are concerned over there?
Mr. Hiremat, you will have to repeat your question. There was some disturbance behind you.
Sorry. So I was asking regarding the initiative of Sanofi going forward. If you want to expand into tier 3 and tier 4, would you be tweaking your overall promotional or sales model? Would there be extra effort required, or more or less you will be following with the same model?
Well, as we said earlier, I think the shift is towards a hybrid model. And that will give us opportunities to both in the existing markets where we are, but also give us the opportunity to extend beyond. But having said that, we will be moving systematically, because in some of the therapies where we are present, there needs to be a lot more of the available infrastructure also around it, in things like insulins. We need to have educators, we need to have somebody to, support patients. And all of that is not available in every part of the country. So some capabilities also need to be built, and we are supporting that as well. And but I think in general, the hybrid model which we are adopting will help us, expand our reach.
Yeah, because I was wondering.
But if you're asking, are we going to sort of, add more people, or are we going to, go in for any other kind of a business model? At this point of time, we are looking at different options. Yeah, on that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So.
Moving to the next question, it is from Mr. Ravi Purohit from Securities Investment Management Private Limited. Mr. Purohit, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, Mr. Purohit.
Am I audible, please?
Yes, you are.
Okay, hi. So quite a few of my questions have already been answered. I just wanted, Mr. Rajaraman's views on, this change in capital allocation that we've kind of, introduced in the last 1 year, where we've kind of, paid out significantly large proportions of cash out of our balance sheet as dividends. So is there something that, shareholders kind of should expect going ahead in future, that as a policy, we are not likely to hold a lot of excessive cash on the balance sheet? And second question was, again on, if you could give some color on the opportunity size of the OTC market that you were referring to, which you kind of, wanted to kind of grow. We had made an acquisition about 6-7 years back. But since then, I think the absolute scale of the overall business has, I don't know whether it's been large or whether it has been satisfactory. So if you could just dwell a little bit more on the size of opportunity on the OTC market and the kind of products that we have or the right to win that we may have in that space. Thank you.
So let me answer the second piece, and I'll request my colleague Vaibhav to answer the first piece on the management of cash. I think the second piece of it is that, we are in a few therapy areas, and the OTC market, of course, is large, but it's a very fragmented market. And our interest is largely in the area of, allergy and pain, which is where we are present at this point of time. But some of these things also depend on the OTC policy, which the government of India is looking at, where some of these brands today are under prescription. And we are hoping that, they may also be considered for OTC. So at that point of time, we would. But ours is more about getting prepared for it. We are really not, looking at an aggressive OTC launch beyond the ones which we have at this point of time. As far as the, acquisition was concerned of Universal, I think we spent considerable amount of time. It's a very interesting portfolio, but we have spent a lot of time actually creating operational efficiencies around that. And it was, bringing focus to a few brands in the Universal portfolio. It has become more profitable for us. Sales growth, of course, have been below our expectations on that. So that's something that we are still looking at, how to grow, how to, improve. And Vaibhav, maybe on the cash piece of it.
Yeah. So the question was on the dividend. I think the dividend that we have declared is a special dividend, of course, considering the cash needs of the company. But it's also linked to the special event, which is essentially the divestment of the Ankleshwar site, which happened in May 2020. So it's more of a dividend of a special nature. And going forward, of course, we will evaluate this depending on the cash requirements. But the dividend declared in the last year has been more of a special dividend.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. It is from Mr. Agraj Shah, Tata AIG Life Insurance Company. Mr. Shah, please go ahead.
Has actually announced that they'll be focusing more on the cancer therapies, and diabetes takes somewhat kind of a backseat. So given that a core focus within India is on the cardiac and diabetes segments, do you think that we'll run out of more options in terms of a future pipeline in that sense? Or do you have more levers over there? Thanks.
Sorry, are you referring to focusing on cancer therapies as in you're talking about the corporate global?
Yeah, the global parent.
Yeah, so I think, our global strategy is clearly around, developing medicines which are really, really transformative. And therefore, we have identified a few areas, including oncology, where we believe that we can really make a very, very big difference to patients through the work that we are doing. As far as diabetes and cardiovascular therapies are concerned, they continue to be very, very large opportunities to serve patients, especially in the emerging markets. And they continue to be a very large part of our priority. Now, we have, of course, said that as far as basic research in diabetes is concerned, we would not be, investing further. But we are finding other ways in which, we will continue to support the pipeline, whether it is through partnerships, whether it's through other kinds of alliances, because we believe that those are, more useful stages at which we should enter to partner and then launch. But, in countries like India and many parts of the emerging markets, diabetes and cardiovascular continue to be absolutely top priority for the company.
So I'll follow up on that. So when you're talking about oncology, do we have plans to launch products to the listed entity, Sanofi India, in the future?
Actually, we've at this point of time, in many of these products, we are at a very early stage of research itself and in terms of the development. But generally, it depends which is the entity and where it is developed overseas. So like Vaibhav said, oncology is not the area for Sanofi India Limited. It's in all probabilities will be launched, under our other associated companies, which are purely in the area of immunology and oncology.
Okay, thank you. That's it from my side.
Yeah, thanks.
The next question comes from Mr. Mayank Hayanki from Axis AMC. Mr. Mayank, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I had two questions. The first one is basically on the current year sales. I wanted to understand, is there anything significant impact on the sales of any of our brands specifically because of COVID, either positive or negative, more than usual? And I mean, this is also with regards to, initial news that a lot of COVID patients initially were being administered insulin shots who were admitted in the hospital. So anything significant one-off on either sides on the current year sales? So that's the first question. The second question is if you can, give us more slightly detailed answer on how the sister concerned companies would be with regards to, the top level management as well as various departments on either admin or the HR side. So how they work closely with each other and how they share costs, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so let me come to the first part on how, frankly, the way there are 2-3 things which have affected in general the industry. The first has been, if you've had fewer footfalls into the OPDs, okay, so less number of patients coming in and less number of physicians practicing. So some of the therapies got impacted by that, particularly the acute therapies. To some extent, brands like Allegra or the allergy market in general, shrunk a bit on that course. However, the chronic therapies like, diabetes and cardio, were less impacted. The first, 4-5 months, in fact, there was obviously some amount of panic buying, stocking up, patients sort of stocked up because they were following chronic medication, and subsequently it began to, come down. So that's been one, but there's been no sort of big upside or downside on that. In fact, if at all, there has been less than what we would have typically got because the OPD flows have been less. The second is a group of medicines which are more consumed in hospitals. They are prescribed for patients who are admitted to the ICU. Over there, we've had a bit of a spike in one of our products, which is enoxaparin, where it got included in the protocol for treatment of patients who were admitted in for COVID in hospitals. So there's a bit of a spike over there, which is again largely when hospitalization went up for such patients. But now that, fortunately, less and less patients are getting hospitalized, that's evening out. And as a counterbalance, the anti-infective brands, which were used for in-hospital consumption, like Targocid, as you have seen over there in my earlier presentation, would not have, had an adequate offtake because, there were not so many elective surgeries being done. So it's been a bit of a mix on this, but directionally it is less than a typical year.
I think the second question was on the support function costs, like finance, HR. So Sanofi India Limited, like we have seen, is a larger entity with close to 2,900 people. And the support departments like finance, HR are housed in Sanofi India Limited. And the services are rendered to the other subsidiaries essentially, and there is a recovery on arm's length basis considering the transfer pricing principle. So that is reflected as income in the books of Sanofi India Limited.
Hi. So the question was also on the top management as well, just not on support functions, even on the senior management part. Whether
Yes.
company senior management actually is active in all the sister concerned companies, and if that is the case, how does the remuneration draw out work from each sister concerned company?
So what I just mentioned applies to senior management and all the support functions as well. So the services rendered to the other companies essentially are recharged to them on an arm's length basis, considering the appropriate transfer pricing principle. So what applies to support functions also applies to senior management, marketing, etc.
Great. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question comes from Mr. Vishal Manchanda from Nirmal Bang Institutional Email.
Thanks for the opportunity. I have a question on your insulin portfolio. So as I understand, the parent company has got approvals for mealtime insulin, insulin Dispro and insulin Aspart. So should we anticipate these products to also to be launched through the Indian entity?
As we said over there, as and when a product is developed and we find a relevance for India, that's also important. The direction is to move to launch through the listed entity whenever, there are no exceptions like the ones which Vaibhav mentioned around, any in-licensing agreements, etc. But right now we have no plans to bring, any of these products into India, more from a point of view of the relevance and the patient need in the short term.
Okay. And one thing that, so basically Sanofi doesn't have a premix insulin, so premix modern insulin. So do you intend to fill this gap? Because as we see in India, there is a preference towards premix insulins, as it lowers the number of shots that patients have to take. So any plans in terms of filling that gap?
Look, I mean, it's really, this is something that physicians really decide as to what is the best, form of treatment, because every patient presents, with very different conditions. There is a role for premix insulin for certain types of patients. There's a role for basal insulin for certain types of patients. And we have generally been in the area of basal insulins, and that's, one of the areas where more and more physicians, use basal insulin now, and we are continuing to invest in that. Having said that, there are specific segments where we believe that a premix insulin will also work, and those are areas where we in fact do have a premix insulin at the a premix human insulin as well. But in the future we will be looking at wherever there's an opportunity for a premix insulin. We have even globally launched a premix insulin quite recently, so it's not something that, but it's not so much about which is better and which is not. It is about what's the appropriate, presentation of symptoms by patients to the doctor, and the doctor sort of decides appropriately for that. So we will be having, a range or a portfolio, but largely it is in the area of basal insulin for us.
Okay. And on soframycin divestment, so just wanted to understand whether this would be divested at the country level or at the global level.
So in case of soframycin, the brands and the trademarks are owned by the group. They are not owned by the affiliate, that is Sanofi India Limited. The product dossiers are also owned by the group. So the Sanofi India Limited has been granted distribution rights for the product, and it would be difficult to actually comment at this stage in terms of consideration to be attributed to Sanofi India Limited, etc. Because the global transaction, there is a bit of a lack of clarity. However, the overall attribution would be dependent on multiple factors, which would again be dependent on valuation principles and transfer pricing regulations.
Okay. And so you also pointed out there are operational cost savings that you have, you are currently running because of the COVID situation. Could you quantify once things normalize, what percentage costs can go up from the current levels?
So difficult to quantify, but a large proportion of the traveling expenses or a significant proportion may be back because those are essentially related to the physical activities back starting again. But like mentioned by us, the physical events, as the proportion goes down, structurally will lead to some savings, but difficult to quantify that piece as of now.
Okay. And just one final one. The gross margins, if we look at, say, the last 3-4 years, they've been quite volatile. So going as low as 53-54%. Even if you look at gross margins on a quarter-over-quarter percent basis, like if you look at Q4 over Q3, gross margins went down 300 basis points. So any number you would want to share where you would want to be in terms of gross margin, maybe in the next 1 or 2 years?
So no comments from a future side, but just to share from a historical perspective, the gross margins on the domestic business are largely stable. Since we have a significant export and domestic mix, there would be a variation because of the export and the domestic mix that you see on quarter, on year. But the domestic gross margins would be largely stable.
Okay. And could you kind of guide what would be the domestic margins and what would be the export gross margins?
No, as mentioned by Girish, we don't share this therapy-wise or segment-wise information in terms of margins.
And what kind of growth can we look at the export business? So like last 5 years, it has grown around 11%. So would this taper down to low single digits?
So again, for Sanofi India, the export business is largely a contract manufacturing activity, and it has grown, like you said, in the previous years at a CAGR of 11%, but it would be difficult to predict the future for this business because it also depends on the market conditions prevailing in the destination countries.
Got it. Thanks, sir. That's all from my side.
Moving on to the next question from Mr. Dhiresh Pathak from GSAM. Mr. Pathak, please go ahead.
Hi, my questions have been answered. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we move on to Ms. Charulata Gaidhani from Dalal and Barocha. Ms. Charulata, your question, please. Okay, so we move to the next question now, which is from Mr. Abhisar Jain from Monarch AIF. Mr. Jain, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Just wanted to know that due to closing down of the Ankleshwar facility that we had, a year before, what kind of impact does it have on the operating margins for the company?
So, post the Ankleshwar divestment, largely it has an impact on the export business. I think when the divestment was approved, we had broadly shared the overall impact. It would be around 470 crores in terms of top line on an average. However, the export business, since it's a contract manufacturing business, and the exports go down, overall, since the mix tilts towards domestic, the overall margin is likely to improve going forward.
Right. And sir, would you want to quantify that, impact per se in terms of the margins? That's what I was looking for.
No, we will not quantify it, as I said, the specific margin impacts.
Understood, sir. And sir, just going forward, since the domestic formulation business is essentially a higher margin business, As a strategy, would we like to incrementally focus solely on the domestic formulations, or we would look at export opportunities selectively?
No, we would be looking at both. As you're aware, as far as exports is concerned, we are not into third-party manufacturing for others. We are largely for our group supplies, and therefore that would continue as and when we have the opportunity. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We move to Mr. Dhaval Shah from Aditya Birla Sun Life Capital Mutual Fund. Mr. Shah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having this session and thank you for taking this question. I just have one question that when I look at Sanofi's overall business, we are predominantly chronic. And in that context, when we look at our operating margins and compare them with other chronic businesses based out of India, we are fairly low versus them. I just wanted to understand the reasons of why there will be that kind of a big difference that we're trying to look at in the margin profile for a predominant chronic business based out of India.
So I think that's because the combination that we have of our portfolio is both of traded products, which are products which we import in full and supply over here in India, as well as those which we are locally manufacturing and then we are marketing. So both of them would have different margin structures, and that's why you would find the blended one to be what you are potentially seeing.
Okay, and so in that context, can you make us understand how much is the traded component in the overall business that we're trying to look at?
Yeah, just give us a minute.
35% approximately is the traded portion.
Okay. And that would largely be insulins like Lantus, which are imported and sold, is it?
Yes, that would be largely insulins. It would be also products like Clexane, Atagocid.
Yeah, the biological products.
That is helpful, and would really request that, if we could have this frequent interactions with investor community, it would genuinely help us to understand the business better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to the next question from Mr. Naresh Suthar from SBI Life Insurance Company Limited. Mr. Suthar, please go ahead. We move to the next one.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Suthar, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So my other question have been answered. One question on margin again. Without giving a specific number, can you qualitatively highlight what are the margin increase levers you have over mid to long term? I mean, in current year we have benefited from the lower marketing expense that will partly go away next year. But beyond that, if you can highlight some of the levers which can increase the margin, will be helpful. Thank you.
I think you're essentially talking about the overall profit levers. So, of course, one part is the cost that you just highlighted, and we did mention about the structural change that all of us are trying to do with respect to the digital activities. The second piece is, of course, on the price and the COGS. On the price part, like Raja mentioned, we have a portfolio which is under price control, a portion of our portfolio, and there we are restricted by the kind of increase that we can take. On the other part of the portfolio, the endeavor would be to take the price increases, of course, to ensure that we remain competitive. So that's the lever that we would use. And the focus also would be on the COGS, or the cost of goods sold, where the improvement activities or smart spend initiatives that we run, we will try to kind of improve that. So all these three levers we would try to use. And one last point is also on the digital part, like we were mentioning, if there is an improvement in reach through the digital activities, that will also help us to drive growth. So that's another lever which we would look at. So basically four levers.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We move to the next question from Mr. Dhananjay Tikareha. He is an individual investor. Mr. Dhananjay, please go ahead. We move to the next question from Ms. Sapna Jhawar from Dalat Capital. Ms. Jhawar?
No.
So we move to the next question from Mr. Sudarshan Padmanabhan from Sundaram Mutual Funds.
Yeah, can you hear me? So I have two questions. One question is, I remember about 2 to 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we were talking about this Prayas initiative, where we are taking the endeavor to move into the tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 towns. And given that today the government is talking about medical penetration, I mean, where are we on the rural markets and what initiatives are we taking in terms of market expansion? The second question is, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when we acquired Universal Medicare, this was a transaction which was quite unique to India business, where the management took a call autonomously and, created value by making this acquisition. Given that we have cash and there is a lot of opportunities in terms of the market growth, I mean, what are the kind of, gaps that we would like to fill in terms of M&A, if at all we would be looking at acquisition?
So thank you, sir, for your questions. On the first piece of it, I think, yes, we are continuously looking at how to, get more access of our medicines to smaller cities and rural. As you mentioned, the Prayas initiative, that was one of the experiments which we tried. Some of our learnings are also there because that was also associated with, a generics play which we made. We withdrew some of it. And we have then, restructured that operation. And we now have different sort of engagement programs through our channel business, which we do for that part. But parallelly, we believe now that there is a significant opportunity for us to grow the market through education in some of the rural markets. It is not just about availability or promotion. It is also about education of the physicians, and it's about education of the healthcare community there. We have programs right now running where we are reaching smaller cities where we are educating doctors in the area of usage of insulin. We are providing them mentor-mentee support where, groups of general physicians are being connected with experts in nearby towns and trained on how to treat patients with diabetes. And capacity building is really our primary focus right now in the smaller cities. And we believe that that will be more sustainable in the long term. Of course, availability is something that, is also one part of it. But capacity building is where we are putting a lot of our investment. The second part of it on Universal and the cash part of it, yes, we are not close to the idea, and we constantly keep evaluating opportunities for, either bolt-on, partnerships or acquisitions. As and when, if something interesting were to come, I think with the cash that we have on our balance sheet, as well as with the support that we would get from the group, we would not hesitate to take an action. But at this point of time, we, as and when we don't see adequate use of it, we prefer the cash route right now, which we are using. Yeah. Maybe, is that okay, Mr. Padmanabhan?
Yes, that answers the question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And any specific therapies that you are looking at if you are looking at acquisitions?
No, I think we're very clear that in SIL, as I outlined in the beginning, it is clearly in the area of chronic therapies, which is driven by diabetes. And of course, if we have an opportunity, of an appropriate area in like allergy or consumer healthcare, we would look at it. But not beyond.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you. We move to the next question, which is from Mr. Ahmed Madha from Unify Capital. Mr. Ahmed Madha.
Yeah, can you hear us, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
See, between between Q3 and Q4, that is calendar year 2020. So, you're able to hear us, please?
So there's a lot of echo. There's a lot of echo behind you. We are not able. If you are on two machines, please switch off one.
Is it better now?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So in the last quarter, we observed that EBITDA margins have come off from 28% to 23%. So is this a new base based on the improvements that you're able to do? Would we be able to improve from the current base of Q4 calendar year 2020?
I'm sorry, we didn't get your question very clearly. Can you just repeat it, please?
Yeah, in the latest quarter results, that Q3 FY21 results, the EBITDA margins are around 23%. And so that quarter on quarter, it's come off. So is this 23% a new base on which the margin trajectory will be built upon?
So there are two aspects to this. One portion is again a significantly higher proportion of export sales in the Q4 2020 numbers. That's one part which has an overall impact on margins. And second part is, like we mentioned, a large proportion of the field force also came back to the ground somewhere in November, December. So that has an automatic impact in terms of cost increases that will come in. So some part of it would be kind of return back to work, and some part would be structural, because there is still some element of physical events which are still not happening. So it's not exactly you can say a representative quarter, but to some extent the cost part, at least you can see it's coming back to more normal levels when physical activities begin.
Okay. The second question, I'm not sure if somebody has raised this because we joined a little late. So on the NLEM front, what is your expectation? Do you expect any of your top 5 to get into the NLEM or the price control?
No, frankly, we can't have any view on that at this point of time. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, then fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Madha.
Yeah. The next question comes from Lakshmi Gandla, individual investor.
Is Ms. on the call?
We move to the next question from Hasmukh Gala from Finvest Advisors.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So just broadly describe your strategy, since probably it appears from the presentation so far that we may not be having many products coming from the parent. Are you open to any in-licensing opportunity like Universal in the relevant fields, as we do have cash on balance sheet, which we can use it for furthering the interest of the business? What is your idea on that, sir?
Thank you, sir. I think we broadly tried to simplify and describe our strategy, which is really around making sure that we are growing and accelerating growth in the area of chronic diseases, particularly diabetes. We have a set of legacy brands which are very strong in their therapy area. We would want to continue expanding them through reach, as well as optimize the profit mix, and also look for innovation opportunities in the area of consumer health. So those are really 3 portfolio choices that we are making, and this we would be supporting with a significant transformation of the organization in the go-to-market model, which is the, moving from pure face-to-face to moving into a hybrid form of engagement. So those are really some of the key elements that we have. And as I said before, there is a large opportunity and responsibility for us to be able to grow some of these therapies where the diagnosis rate is very low, the treatment rate is very low, and the headroom is really very large. So our investments will also continue to be in those areas in terms of market development. Having said that, we are open and always looking out for any kind of opportunities, whether in licensing or partnerships, as long as they are in the broad framework of the therapies we wish to operate in.
Okay, that is helpful. So my second question is, now since we have got only Goa plant, when do you think you will require any sizable capital expenditure as your business is growing, say, at the rate of 8%, 10%, 11% every year? So will you be, doing more of outsourcing of the products from, say, third-party manufacturers? Or will you be, wanting to set up a new plant in some other location if Goa has some problem because of the pollution-related issues, etc.?
So currently, in the near term, I think we would be focusing more on maintenance capex, maintenance capital expenditure. And at the Goa site, if need be, we can, of course, expand capacity as necessary. Of course, we have 18 P2P, external manufacturers. So that option is also available. But in case needed, in the Goa plant, we have the ability to expand.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. The next question comes from Mr. Bharat Shah from ASK Investment Managers Limited. Mr. Bharat Shah, please go ahead.
We move
to the next one, which is from Mr. Himanshu Upadhyay, PGIM. Mr. Upadhyay. We move to the next one, which is from...
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
I am Himanshu.
Yes, Himanshu.
Yeah, so my first question was, based on our annual report, in CY17, our ranking in India was 18th, which moved to 20th in CY18 and then 21 in CY19. What would be the reason for our ranking to continuously fall and our market share to reduce? And what are we doing to get back our market share and rankings? Also, which therapy areas would we have lost market share? Can you please elaborate? This was the first question.
Okay, so we'll probably take this as the last question. Yes. But I'll answer
Can
this.
I ask one more? So,
okay, Mr. Upadhyay, you can answer one and we'll try and answer that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, what would be the revenue contribution from top 10 drugs cumulatively? And how would that 10 bucket of top 10 drugs have grown in comparison to domestic sales growth for the company? Can you elaborate on these? Because we are seeing your rating has been continuously falling. So how do we match with or your justifications and what you are doing about it?
Thank you. Thank you. It's a good question. So as I said before, we are not present and in all the therapies of the market. And we are present in a limited part of the market. And we therefore look at our market share really in the therapies where we are in. Yeah. And obviously, if we are losing an overall position, it is because some of the therapies where we are not present are either growing or we are losing a bit of share in that. Now, in the therapies we are present, which is where we focus on, our market share continues to grow. In fact, we have in all our key therapies, our brands are in the top 5. If you look at our insulin, Lantus is in fact in the top 3 brands in the entire Indian market across all therapies. Allegra continues to be a leader. We have the same position with Amaryl. We have a similar position with some of our other brands like Frisium, etc., which are all there in the top 4 to 6 brands in the segment. So that is really where we focus. Aggregate share, frankly, is not of, it's more an arithmetic outcome. It is not at all part of our something that we want to track. But in the areas where we are, it is very critical. In the same way, if you were to look at our top 10 brands, you want to give a sense?
Top 10 brands would contribute to roughly 75% of domestic sales, and they are growing at high single digit.
And they would grow a little ahead of the average of the market always.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Upadhyay. So it's almost 4 p.m. now, and in the interest of time, we will not be able to take further questions on this webinar. The shareholders will soon receive annual report of the company, which will give more details on company's performance in the year 2020. We will be holding our AGM on 27th April 2021, where shareholders will get another opportunity to interact with the company, including the entire board of directors, and also hear Mr. Aditya Narayan, chairman of the board. Shareholders may join this meeting as per the details that will be provided in the AGM notice. I would now request Mr. Rajaram Narayanan to give his closing remarks.
Thank you, Girish. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on our first sort of investor call. We're very happy that the participation has been so enthusiastic. I'm afraid we could not take all the questions, but as Girish said, we have the opportunity to answer more of them either through the annual report or at the AGM itself. We really want to thank each one of you for your deep interest in the company and supporting us with your confidence. We look forward to interacting with you again. I really want to thank everybody here who's been with me, Vaibhav, Karanikar, our CFO, Girish, our company secretary, and the rest of the team who sort of supported us in putting together our first investor call. And we look forward to your feedback and on how to improve this interaction for the future. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay safe with your families, and wish you a good 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. We now conclude this call. You may now disconnect your lines.